Hi, everybody. This is Philip Martin, and this is Paris, who used to review films for us, and just wanted to come up for the opening. That's all. I don't think she's going to stay with us, but we'll be back in a minute with OnFilm for July 15th, 2022. See you then. I don't think Paris will stick around though. Bye. Hold on.
Huh? I'm Hank, and I'm the new samurai.
New samurai, huh?
Hank is a dog in a world of dog-hating cats.
What the mother, father, cocker spaniel's going on here?
Jimbo, played by Samuel L. Jackson, becomes Hank's teacher.
Don't forget to land on your feet. The movie is pretty wacky and pretty wild. And a lot of fun.
It's Hank and Jimbo. We're here to save you.
It was a blast to make this movie.
Lesson over. Well done.
Okay, that's a clip from Paws of Fury, Legend of Hank, an animated movie that's opening this week that we don't have a review for. And why we don't have a review for it, well, that's Ask the Studios. I mean, I guess I haven't seen any reviews of it. So I guess what they didn't do was they didn't screen it for anybody. They didn't send out any screeners. And they're just kind of opening it because, you need something to take your kids to see this weekend, But it doesn't look that bad to me. I mean, I really, it's sort of like often when you see these these movies sort of sneak in on you, they look pretty bad. But here and this is something I took straight out of the press kit, obviously. So I hope they didn't flag it, and now we don't have to put a little black bar up there. It says that, that if you didn't see it, and I'm not going to change the set, I'm going to still talk about it. But, it looked like, Samuel L. Jackson's not my first choice for a children's film, but, counterintuitively, maybe he works. And Michael Cera, I actually kind of like Michael Cera. I've interviewed him. I talked to him. I think he is very much one of those people who is a lot like his on-screen persona. You can't always count on people being like their on-screen persona, but I think he is. I think he's a nice enough guy. And if we have to have a movie that we don't review, well, that's it. Now, the other movie that we don't review, but we have a review of it, is Where the Crawdads Sing. And this is sort of unfortunate because what happened was we just missed the screening. And that's not anybody's fault. That's just something that happens occasionally. You go to the wrong theater, you forget, life intervenes, and sometimes we miss a few. So I went and found a Wire review, which is not always very easy to do. In fact, this was, at the time I needed it, there's a couple more now I see. This was the only one that was available. And it's good because it's Katie Walsh, and I like her work. If I'm going to run, she's one of the people I will run. There are a lot of critics out there whose work I will not run in this section because I just don't think it meets our standards. I mean, it's a lot of guys out there doing book reports, and a lot of guys are out there just kind of futzing around and making fun of movies. And that's fine if that's what you want to read, but it's not what we're about, and it's not what we're doing. So Katie's review is great, and I trust her. I think she's a pretty good critic. What we try to do here, one reason we don't use her more often is because we are trying to have you guys, build this sort of relationship with our stable of critics, and so that you would know what... when Dan Liebarger reviews a film, you will have this history with Dan's reviews, and you'll kind of know where he's coming from. You kind of know where Courtney's coming from. You kind of know where Piers is coming from. You kind of know where I'm coming from. And that way you can sort of calibrate your own experience to that. I mean, sort of like if you might, as a lot of people tell me and like to tell me, and they think it's very clever, well, if you like it, I know I'm not going to like it. And if you don't like it, I know I'm going to like it. And I said, well, fine, have fun with, Freddie got fingered. I don't know what to say about that, except that in a way that's the way it's supposed to work. It's, you are supposed to be able to go, well, they like this film, but they have a weak spot for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they tend to overpraise these things, and they tend to underrate this, and that's fine. That's how it works. I mean, all a critic really has to do is say something interesting and possibly true about the work that is under consideration. It's not a really hard thing. I mean, it's hard to do it well. It's hard to, be good at it, I think. I think it's really hard to be good at, because most working critics are, to my mind, not very good, because they tend to give you a book report and a verdict. They tend to say, this is what the film was, and this is whether I liked it or not, which is not criticism as far as I'm concerned. So we try to do it a little bit differently. But anyway, so we do have Katie's review of it, and it's interesting because Where the Crawdads Sing, is this huge book, and it was on the bestseller list for 135 weeks. Karen tells me it's back on the bestseller list. The paperback is now, with the movie coming out. So it's just this giant book. And like a lot of these giant books, I didn't really get any traction with it. I didn't really like it. Now, to be fair, I didn't read it all. Only read a couple chapters. Stylistically, I wasn't impressed. To me, the book seemed derivative of a couple things, To Kill a Mockingbird and Beasts of the Southern Wild, the film from, 2008 or so. And I didn't like the book. So we didn't review the book because I get a shot at reviewing books once every 2 weeks. I don't tend to waste those opportunities by panning books, because, well, it's fun to pan a book sometimes, or a movie, but I would rather, given the limited space we allocate to that, I would rather present you with something that you might like. I'd rather turn you on to a book that some of you might really enjoy than, say, this is really bad and this is why, and I can be funny about being bad, because I don't really like finishing bad books. And if I'm going to review a book, I really do think I have to finish it. So I didn't finish Crawdads, but bad books can often be made into good movies. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's sort of like you can do a lot with casting. You can do a lot with fleshing it out visually. You don't have to have all these explicit ideas. You can, if you've got good actors and good screenwriters, you can leave a lot unsaid, and it just works differently. It's just a different sort of thing. It's really hard, I think, to make a decent movie from a good book, because a lot of good books, really are in the realm of ideas, and they're working differently than in this sort of plot-driven sort of space that movies operate in for the most part. Not all movies do, but, most movies are basically stories, machines to tell stories is what movies are, and it's not difficult to take the intellectual property of, Jack Reacher, or a Stephen King thing. And I'm not saying Reacher, people know I like Reacher's books, or Reacher books. People know that I like some Stephen King. Okay, I'm not slagging on those guys, but it's easy to turn that sort of story into a movie, where it may be harder to turn a story like Anna Karenina, or, The Crying of Lot 49, or Tristan Shandy into a movie. Okay, that's just the way it is. I mean, something that could be a wonderful, Ulysses can be a wonderful book, and I really insist that it is, and that it's not difficult if you just allow yourself to read it. I know we push back on that, but but making a movie of Ulysses is really going to be hard. Making a movie, a lot of James Joyce stuff is going to be hard. Making a movie of a lot of Richard Ford stuff is going to be hard. Wildlife is pretty good, but it's nothing really like the book. And Ford would be the first to tell you that. And they made the movie of his blessing, and it's out on Criterion now. So, throw that little plug out there. In fact, I may show that to my class. I don't know. But anyway, it's funny because, like I said, I would have reviewed the movie Where the Crawdads Sing had I the chance. We don't get an awful lot of opportunities here in Little Rock because studios cut back on their screenings, and a movie like that, they're generally not going to send screening links because they're afraid it's going to be pirated. And I don't know if it has been pirated, but I could check, and I'm pretty sure that in a week that movie is going to be out there on the dark web, or people will be able to download it if they're willing to do that. So I kind of get that. But at the same time, we have critics stationed all over the country, or in Boston, or not really Boston, but Maine, and in Philadelphia and Kansas City. So we pretty much get whatever screens get screened. We just happen to miss this screening. And then today I get an invitation to a screening of it tonight. So, but it's in Dallas, so I'm not going to go. Anyway, it would be too late for us anyway because we have to have that review in. But that just means that we rejiggered the thing, and I had planned to have Crawdads be the lead film this week, and it's not because I want one of our guys in the lead spot. Sorry, Katie. I mean, not that you don't deserve it, but we switched over to Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which is a very interesting film to me personally because I could have sworn it came out 2 or 3 years ago. It didn't. It came out in 1992. There was a TV version with Angela Lansbury rather than... I can't remember who's in it now. But there was an old one, and the book's been around since 1958, written by an American sports writer, Paul Gallico. But I guess I remember reading about it when it was being filmed, which was in 2020, late 2020, October 2020, which was during COVID, which might also add to that sort of Mandela effect that, I wasn't doing anything, we were all hanging out. So I kind of thought it had come out and maybe it hadn't made a big splash or anything. Maybe it was, but now it's coming out and it's got almost universal, critical approval. I mean, people love it. I mean, so it's nice to have a PG movie that's, everybody likes. That's not overly sappy, I don't guess. Keith Garlington seemed to really like this film. So, we have cobbled together a section here in one of those weird summer weekends where it's like things are kind of falling apart. I mean, the next week we've got Nope, so we're back into that big blockbuster of the week kind of deal. This week there isn't a real big blockbuster. I think some people think Crawdads might be that. I think Mrs. Harris is going to do pretty well. And then we have Hank. And then we have a couple other things that are opening and streaming and stuff like that. Anyway. Explain myself. About a year ago, just about exactly a year ago, I screened James Caan, or actually Michael Mann's movie Thief for my Life Quest class at Riverdale. That class is going on again, so it's kind of bittersweet, interesting that Caan took the opportunity to die this month because, like I said, I was sort of thinking about him when I was putting together my schedule, my menu of movies for this summer. Every July I show movies for Live Quest and talk about them. And what I showed last week was, I'm blanking on it. What is it? Oh, Hard Day's Night, The Beatles. I showed that movie to them. And this week I'm showing Bonnie and Clyde, which is a movie I've talked a lot about. But last year, I think the first movie in the series was Thief, which was Michael Mann's movie that he'd been trying to make since forever about a real-life thief, a real-life jewel thief. And Caan is in it, and he plays the thief, Frank. And he learned a lot about the equipment this guy used, and the actual guy's tools are shown in the thing. It's a very stylish movie with a score by Tangerine Dream, and one of the cops in it was a thief, and I wrote about that last year. I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking about Thief and writing about Thief, and I think it's a great movie. I think it's Willie Nelson's in it, and a fairly small part, but it's funny that 40-something years ago Willie Nelson was playing old. So he was an old guy in this movie. So we're back there a year later, and James Caan's no longer with us, and he was a really interesting guy. I mean, I wrote about him on Tuesday. I mean, the thing that is sort of interesting, and I don't know the answer to this. He ended up going to this really kind of exclusive prep school, the Rhodes School in New York, in Manhattan, which is the model for the school that Holden Caulfield goes to in Catcher in the Rye. It's full of it's kind of a school for well-to-do, affluent screw-ups, people who are on their last chance. This is where you went, before they sent you to military school, I guess. I mean, and he had classmates like Robert De Niro and Ron Brown, the Secretary of Commerce under Bill Clinton. A lot of famous people went to Rhodes. It's a big deal school. And he really did have kind of I don't know how he got there, because he really was sort of this son of an immigrant, kosher, butcher, and he probably was a pretty tough character. I don't know how much of that is mythology. I mean, I've read interviews where he said he fought every day, and I read another interview with Caan where he said he had only one fight before he was in high school. It sort of established this reputation as a tough guy, because he beat up this tough guy before he went to high school. And it sort of set the tone. It's sort of like, he said, it was sort of like walking in prison and taking on the biggest guy there. But again, and then there's other things where he says that I fought every day. He apparently was a boxer when he was 11. He was apparently a boxer who called himself, or was called, Killer Caan. I don't know how much of that to believe. I don't know how much to believe of this tough guy sort of thing that he, sort of insisted upon, that he put out, like he was this tough New York Jew, the tough New York Jew. When he did, The Gambler, Axel Freed, in 1974, which was it was sort of an autobiographical story written by James Toback. Who you'll know from, if you don't know who James Toback is, go get a Wikipedia. Yeah, go check it out. He's also a very interesting character. But it's basically was Toback's semi-autobiographical story. And I remember that some of the reviews were questioning whether James Caan was credible as a college professor, which I think is really interesting, because he obviously was this very astute, kind of bright guy. He played piano. He was a beautiful piano player. He was not uncultured, is what I guess I'm trying to say. But he put out this this image. This image is this, tough mafioso kind of skirting guy, and it served him well. I mean, when he was shooting the Godfather, which Francis Ford Coppola, he met while he was at Hofstra College in Long Island. The FBI actually identified him briefly as an aspiring mobster. They said, well, we got to watch this guy, this James Caan guy. he's coming up in this family. I mean, he was just hanging out and doing research, I guess, or he would call it research. Maybe he was just hanging out. Now, anyway, it sort of kind of goes to my theory that if you want to be one of these people, if you want to be an actor, you want to be a movie star, not necessarily an actor. You want to be an actor, go to school, learn how to do it, find the good programs and stuff like that. But if you want to be a movie star, well, that's just going to be up to the universe. And you really might as well, even though James Caan had the good fortune of studying with Sandy Meiser, you just might as well go and try to do it. Try to make buddies with the next Francis Ford Coppola. Get cast in his movies, Play versions of yourself until you can play other people. And have this larger-than-life personality. And there's a lot of stuff about James Caan that I am really skeptical of. I really don't know that he was as gruff and as rough-edged as he pretended. I really think that he was probably, capable of being a very nice gentleman and answering questions civilly. I don't think I ever interviewed him. There were a couple of films that I might have, if he happened to be there on the junket, but he never made an impression upon me as somebody. I mean, you would think I would remember interviewing James Caan, and I think I would remember interviewing James Caan. I'm just saying that I went on junkets for movies that he was part of, and either he wasn't there or he didn't make an impression. But, God, he made an impression in the films. I mean, it's like, people talk about Brian's Song. I can throw Brian's Song out. I mean, I'm not a fan. I mean, I just think it's a sappy made-for-TV movie that is probably, a male weepy. Okay, that's great. I don't know. I mean, the thing about James Caan was that he was terrific in a few movies. In The Godfather, in The Gambler, and in Thief. That scene he does right in the middle part of the movie with Tuesday Weld in the all-night diner. That is just one of the best pieces of acting that you're going to see. Modern acting. And she's great in it, too. And it wasn't until this week, after he died, that I found out that was actually his favorite scene that he had ever done, too. So, man, the guy had taste. He had some class. And, I don't think they make them like that anymore. So, happy trails, James Caan. We'll see you next week. It'll be another, big blockbuster weekend next week. So get ready for Nope. And we'll see you at the movies.